Rabbi Yoel Gold, the Rabbi Yoel Gold, world-renowned storyteller, inspiration, chizuk, amuna, betachon, hashgacha pratis. What a pleasure to spend some time with you.
Thank you so much, Rav Zalman. Thank you. Thank you, Rav Zalman. And it's an honor to sit with you and have this conversation, although I think we're hundreds of miles apart. Isn't technology great? Get into the conversation like this, and you are leading the oldest, and I would say one of the most important organizations in Colel Yisrael, Colel Chabad. And I think that our conversation will revolve around missions we both share, we have in common right now. So I'm excited to get started. It all started really, Reb Zalman. I get so many stories. I'm sure as many requests as you get, probably you get a lot more for help with the work that you do. I get a lot of stories. Every week I get dozens and dozens of stories. People stop me on the street. And some are more inspirational than others. But at the beginning of this year, I got a story. I couldn't believe it. A guy said that he knows of a rabbi in Israel who used to be a rabbi in Rome. And he claims that he was taken down in the bowels of the Vatican and he saw the came of the Beis HaMikdash. Particularly the menorah, which is our topic today. I actually went there to Israel, interviewed him, I met him. Very believable story, because the Pope he claims that took him down there was one of the friendliest popes to the Jews. So he was pretty believable, his story. I can't vouch for it, but he's a Peskas Kashers. And one of the first questions I asked was, what shape was the menorah? So before I tell you, what he said to me, Zala, why don't you tell me what the Rebbe says about that?
The first thing is, the shape of the menorah, there was the menorah the way it was in the Beis HaMikdash, the way it's drawn out by the Rambam in Pirush HaMishnayos. The Rebbe spoke very many times about it, that it was straight branches. So well-known Shitas HaRambam. The Rebbe spoke about it many times. The Rebbe spoke about it also in context of the luchos, of being square luchos, and the makar of round luchos also comes from foreign sources. But then obviously the candelabra, there is a very famous candelabra in the arch, engraved in the Arch of Titus. That was a symbol of the destruction of the Beis HaMikdash. And that over there has a candelabra with round branches. The first thing is for us to verify if it's a proper menorah is to see if it has round branches. So then when we know it's some other candelabra used for some other reason, which obviously makes sense. They had in those days many different, because it was used for light, for celebration, was a common thing, or if it was actually the menorah that was used in the Beis HaMikdash, created from the Eibishter himself for the Mishkan, the Miksha Achas, solid piece of gold. And it would be fascinating if it's down there.
So the number says that the menorah on the Arch of Titus was not the menorah in the Beis HaMikdash, obviously. It's a different menorah.
It couldn't have been, because it's counter to what Chazal say, and there's no reason for us to follow some inscription in a arch where Jews wouldn't even go under. It's what it marks.
Right. Just want to tell you, we filmed in places that is really off limit to the public. We're able to access some of the catacombs that was discovered 100 years ago, and nobody's been down there. The catacombs are underground tunnels, like goes 4 levels deep underground, miles long. And thousands of Yidden are buried there from the times of the Churban Beis HaMikdash. This brought over 90,000 plus Jewish slaves to Rome. And many of them are buried there. Many of them saw the menorah. Their families saw the menorah. And on their graves, they etched the shape of the menorah. There are a lot of shapes, and the colors are vibrant still. It's unbelievable what we show in that film. So it seems like even in those days, the popular image of the menorah, or the accepted image, was curved branches. It's not just on the Arch of Titus. You see it even in the catacombs.
The menorah being a Jewish symbol was very old, and the fact that it was used, you see it on coinage, you see it in many areas, but one could even argue quite the opposite, that the fact that the Kelim of the Beis HaMikdash had a Kedusha, doesn't make sense that they would take one of the Kelim of the Beis HaMikdash that has such Kedusha to become a general symbol for other things. So one would argue the exact opposite. The mere fact that it's a symbol of round branches is it's symbolizing something else, not it where they would not use something that it shouldn't look like. We find the Yisur about making kelim that look like the kelim of the base of Migdash, Tamazoi, the Ketores. It's well known the families that made the Ketores kept the recipe a secret because they didn't want anybody else to use the Ketores for other reasons. So the mere fact that Yidden used round branches as a symbol actually could very much be a proof. Again, proof the opposite. Again, this is not my area of expertise. There's no Talmidei Chacham that studied, but at least B'shitchis, with simple understanding, it would make sense that Jews would stick away from actually using an image of the Beis Hamikdash as a symbol.
It's so interesting you say that, because in all my research and interviews that I've done for the Still, nobody's actually put forward what you're saying now, which it resonates.
I don't know. Balabatish, it makes sense.
Yeah, it does make sense, actually. And what I do want to say to you is that also what I discovered in my research in Josephus, who was a Jewish general, and he became a Roman historian, and he witnessed the Churban, and he wrote a lot about it. He journaled about it, and he writes there that Titus took 2 menorahs. He actually took 2 menorahs to Rome. And it's very possible that one menorah was from the Heisal, like the Rebbe says, it was Rashi and the Rambam diagonal, and the other menorah may have been from the Chapter. They had menorahs, decorative menorahs. Shlomo Melech made 10 menorahs. That could have been curved and had the influences of Roman culture. They did find also a medallion dating back to the 3rd century with a picture of 2 menorahs, and one is curved and the other is diagonal. It's fascinating. It's in a museum in New York. So there are sources that are reliable sources. I mean, Josephus is not, loud, still, there are those who say that they brought 2 menorahs.
There's another thing that I think you would find very interesting is there's a machlokes of which direction the menorah stood in the Beis Hamikdash. Did it stand east-west or north-south?
Oh, wow.
There's a machlokes in the Gemara. And there's actually a very long explanation that the Rebbe wrote in 1939, before the Rebbe was in Paris at the time, enrolled as a student in studying in Paris. And the Rebbe wrote lengthy scholarly works explaining both the reasons for the machlokes, because it's a machlokes b'mitzias, was it this way or that way, how it would be. And more importantly, then the Rebbe goes into analyzing the kelim of the Beis Hamikdash, al derech hadrush. It was actually never published in the Rebbe's lifetime. After Gimel Tammuz, after the Rebbe's historicals, it was discovered among the Rebbe's stuff. It was known that it exists because the Rebbe referenced it a few times. It was written and prepared on the request of the Friedrich Rebbe, the Rebbe's father-in-law, in response to a request from one of the Hasidim in Eretz Yisrael, and it was published in its entirety. A fascinating analysis about, because there was the Ner Ma'aravi, which one, if the menorah is Mizrach Ma'ariv, so then there's a Ner Ma'aravi. If the menorah is sitting east-west, so then there's a western candle. But if it's sitting north-south, then which one is the western candle? And then how was it lit? In which order it was lit? Really a fascinating subject, which is also connected to the menorah. But over the Rebbe highlights, and the Rebbe spoke very much about the really underlying spiritual message of the menorah, which I know you also delved into.
Yes, the Rebbe didn't just reintroduce the authentic shape of the menorah, but the Rebbe reintroduced the message of the menorah. Like you're saying, Rav Zalman, what was the Rebbe's message? What's the menorah's message?
The menorah has within it a paradox. On the one hand, it had to be mikshachas, one solid piece of gold. On the other hand, there was very nuanced details. There was 7 branches. Each branch had its own shape and size, its own look. There was the cups, there was the flowers, there were the balls. It had a lot of detail to it. On the one hand, it had to be one solid piece of gold, and on the other hand, it had to have all these detail. And the Rebbe spoke about it many times. It represents Klal Yisrael, that just there's parts of Sfeim Shyness. We are each different. We run and operate in a different manner. We have our different uniquenesses. Ner Hashem Nishmas Adam, that every person is a candle. But even in that candle, there's a uniqueness. And then there's the unifying factor, the factor that connects everybody. And that is what the menorah is, that it's miksha achas ad yirecha. From the top to the bottom, it's one solid piece of gold, but it has the details. And the Rabbi even says that each person within themselves has a menorah. You know, we have our different parts of our bodies, our intellect, our emotion. And then also in our day, we have the time that we dedicate for Torah and Tefillah, and the time that we dedicate for Derech Eretz, the time that we dedicate for Torah study, the time that we dedicate for worldly matters, each person according to their own. But again, so on the one hand, we have the nuanced details. And on the other hand, there's the unifying factor of every detail is solid gold connected as one. That means even what a person does in his day-to-day life, it could seem furthest away from the limit HaTorah, is connected to the solid gold, and that's what the menorah is. So actually, I'm on a run. The Kol Chabad is the oldest continuously operating organization. Our primary work is helping poor people in Israel. Started from the Alter Rebbe, when the Hasidim of the Baal Shem Tov went to Eretz Yisrael, the Alter Rebbe took responsibility, and we've been following suit ever since. One time I sat with a marketer about marketing Kol Chabad, and I explained to them all the work we do, our soup kitchens and the clothing distributions and the food distribution and help for widows and orphans, etc. I said, guys, that's from a marketing perspective, you guys facing two challenges: your first name and your last name. Your first name is Colel, which is not a typical Colel, the way Rabbi Yisrael Salanter developed 100 years later, the Colel. And it's not the typical Chabad, you know, it's not a regular Chabad house where you could expect to find Chol of Yisrael milk in Timbuktu or whatever. So he said, besides that, you know, a marketing problem. You have a marketing problem. So I told him quite the opposite, that the Rebbe was very active in the work of Kol Chabad. Actually, we just published a book of all the Rebbe's correspondence associated with Kol Chabad events. We do dinners, fundraising events, and the Rebbe always spoke about it. You know, Shabbos Parshas Ba'aloischa, 1991, talking about the menorah. The Rebbe was discussing this subject. That Matzah Shabbos was a Melava Malka fundraiser in Crown Heights. And the Rebbe says that the work of Kol Chabad is symbolized by the menorah. And it's symbolized by its name. The first name, Kolel, means to include. What are we including? We're including the Jews in Chutz La'aretz, in the diaspora, and the Jews in Eretz Yisrael, to connect them, to be Kolel everybody. And it's being Kolel all the individual Jews that give to a single cause of helping Eretz Yisrael. So the Rebbe writes says that the first thing is in the name of Kol Chabad, that Kolel means to include, to unify everybody, like the menorah is the unification pieces. And Chabad, what is Chabad? Chachma Bina Das, to unify the person's intellect. Again, it's this concept of unifying individual things. So it's not that the name is the deficit. No. The name represents the real mission. What is the real mission? The real mission is to connect Yidden with the Aviyam Shabbat Shamayim, to connect Yidden with the HaKadosh Baruch Hu. And how specifically? You do it through raising money for poor people in Eretz Yisrael. So that connects both the people in Eretz Yisrael and it connects here. And the Rebbe was part of our Israel. And this is the connecting people.
Amazing. Amazing. That's amazing. Reb Zalman, I never heard it like that. Was this in the Stifkel in Parshas Ba'alos?
Yeah. It's all printed. It's printed as a separate, it came out as a separate, Lashon Kodesh. It came out as a separate Sicha, Shabbos Parshas Ba'alos, about Kol Chabad. And the Rebbe starts off, Matzah Shabbos is this celebration, and of course, there was this celebration. But I think it's an idea that by the Rebbe that really comes through everything. This unifying factor that every Jew has their individuality, but their specific calling, and there's the you see it in everything. It just fits right in.
It's incredible, Zalman. The Rebbe saw it in every Torah, and I haven't been through all the Rebbe's Torahs. I have a whole set of Likutei at home. That was the Rebbe's message. The Rebbe's message was Kolel Chabad. That was, like you just explained. And talking about unifying, this film, you and I are unifying right now in spreading the message we're both trying to spread, which is really one and the same. You know, the message of the menorah. One message is, I didn't realize in the architecture and the way it was constructed, right? Although there are different parts, like you just explained so beautifully, it was still Mitsha Apas. I never realized that. The way that you said it from the Rebbe so beautifully. but also the light of the menorah. The menorah was geared to bring out light, right, to the whole world, to shine light to the whole world. And I'm assuming this is part of the Rebbe's mission. The Rebbe's message was to be an Or Lagoyim. The Rebbe wanted you to go out, the whole Katzvei Tevel, all four corners of the globe, and to shine, to be a light, to shine to the mitzvahs, to bring tefillin to every Jew. And not just tefillin, but even Shabbat mitzvahs b'nei noach. I know the Rebbe was a big proponent to make a kiddush Hashem, every person. Yeah, so that's really the message of the menorah as well. And I'm assuming that's also one of the messages of Colel Chabad. Is that also incorporated in Colel Chabad?
Everything Colel Chabad does is follows the mission, the way that Rebbe laid out to us, for also to be for Kiddush Hashem. Also, we have supporting of non-Jews in Israel, Israeli non-Jews, also for the same thing of Kiddush Hashem and Baruch Hashem. I wanted to ask you, so what can we expect to see in your film?
Okay, so you're not going to see the menorah itself. That's a spoiler alert right there. I'm spoiling it right there, but hold on. You're going to see, the way I want to put it, you're not going to see the menorah, but you're going to see the light of the menorah. The light of the menorah, I thought this was more important, but when the Romans took the menorah, the Gemara Naved Zara says, a story of Chanina ben Shradim, we learned Naved Zara Yitzches just a couple of days ago in Daf Yomi, where they wrapped him up in a Sefer Torah and they were burning him alive. And his Talmidim says, Rebbe, what are you seeing? He says, I see Oisius Parchas. I see the letters are flying upward. And what he was really saying was that you could burn the material, you could burn the parchment, but you can never burn away the soul and the spirit and the light of Torah. That you could never, ever take away. And really, we go through the history, 2,000-year history, from when the menorah was taken from Eretz Yisrael to Rome. We trace the steps, follow the journey from where it arrived, where it was taken up to, Rome paraded through the streets, Temple of Peace. We show you everything. And then we go through the mystery, where it might be today. And in the end, what you're coming away with is the message that's so much more important than the menorah itself, the physical object, which, by the way, the Romans have it, the Romans took it, but they were never able to take the soul of the menorah. The spirit of the menorah flew away right away. And that can only be expressed through us. We have to create the kelim to express that. Colel Chabad is the ultimate keli to really shine a light, the light of the menorah to the world and helping so many people. And really, the film is showing exactly that the message of the menorah is not so much the menorah itself, it's what the menorah stood for. And that was never taken away from us. Never was that. That was Osiris Parkas, that spirit, that soul, that light is available to everybody. Just create the keli and the light will shine forth. If you watch the film, and hopefully you will, you'll see we have actually first-hand accounts, eyewitness accounts of people, and you'll decide if they're credible or not, of people who were down there in the Vatican, in the depths of the Vatican, and claimed to have seen the Klei Mikdash. They came, and they have treasure maps. They literally outline where they were taken and where they were taken down, and describe even the shape of the menorah. And when I wanted them to tell the shape, what is the shape, they were too afraid to get involved. And one particular rabbi said, I know that it's Machlokas Rishonim. The Rabbi Marash says it's diagonal. That an Ezra is mashma, it's curved. He says, I'd rather not say, he said. But we know that Rashi the Rambam said that it's diagonal, the Rebbe says diagonal. But either way, we have first-hand accounts, which is very interesting. And we also follow all the diplomatic efforts that have been made over the past 40 years since some of these testimonials came out on retrieving the menorah. People ask me, if you retrieve the menorah, what are you going to do with it? Who does it belong to? Who's going to keep it? I said, you know what? Maybe that's why the Rebbe Shalom says, okay, let's just leave it here and we'll take it out when the time is right.
There's just another aspect of the menorah. Another aspect of the menorah is the concept of lahalis ner tamid. There was the lighting of the menorah of Ben Arbayim, and then there was the lahalis ner tamid, the constant light. And it's very important. Another important message in menorah is the continuous doing of Torah and mitzvahs. It's not just Ben Arbayim. It's not just for specific times. The Baal HaTanya stresses a lot and even more so about when it comes to giving tzedakah. That giving tzedakah, there's two aspects of giving tzedakah. There's the receiver, and then there's the giver. There's the impact that the tzedakah has on the receiver. They get to eat. Somebody says that, somebody came, one of the Rabbi says that, I feel that when I give tzedakah, I don't give it with my whole heart. He says, don't worry, the poor person that eats gets satisfied with his whole heart. So don't worry about your head. But when a person gives tzedakah, there's the impact on the giver also. That's why the Alter Rebbe says, that tzedakah should be constantly, a person should always frequently give tzedakah on a regular basis, before davening, before eating, before sudas, as anyone that was raised with the tzedakah pushka has. Now today in the modern day, who walks around with coins? And there's still this concept of giving tzedakah. So Colel Chabad has created a tzedakah pushka app, the simple app that works as a tzedakah pushka, and you can have a preset amount. And when you give the preset amount, you can have 3 presets, change what you want, and then you give. The Baal Shem Tov says that the noise of the jingling of the tzedakah confuses the satan. So therefore, of course, you need to have a jingle and a moderate thing, but the objective is this tamid, that it should be always in a person's mind. Torah mitzvahs isn't just something for bein abayim for at once or for twice. It was once a day, twice a day, whatever it was. But there's the lalos ner tamid. There's the continuation of the light, and that there should always be a light burning.
It's beautiful. Just to add on that, Rav Zalman, my kids call me a phasiologist. You know what a phasiologist is? I make commitments. I say I'm going to be gluten-free and I'm going to cut sugar out of my diet, and I last for 2 weeks, 3 weeks, and it's just a phase, and then I'm back with my gluten. My kids already know, okay, when I make a commitment, I'm a phasiologist. So recently, I said I'm going to start learning. About a year and a half ago, I said I'm starting to do the daf. My kids smirked, they said, okay, now I'm inspired to go daf. I'm a phasiologist. But what I did different was I started the daf, but not just learning it for myself. I started giving a shiur and daf yomi every day. And I haven't missed a day yet. And my kids are like, wow, we're surprised. A year and a half later, you're still holding on tight. And I realized that to accomplish what you're saying, lahalos ner tamid, that consistency, which is so important, whether it's tzedakah, chesed, Torah, avodah, tefillah, there has to be accountability. Accountability. That's a big deal when it comes to consistency. And the reason why I'm still going a year and a half later is because the people who come to my shiur hold me accountable every single day. I can't just show up with nothing. And so accountability is a good idea for lahalos ner tamid. But certainly when there's a consistency, it's a different ballgame. It's a whole different Yiddishkeit.
Of course. And in truth is, it has to be that way.
Colel Chabad seems to be the most consistent organization in the world. They've been around, like you said, they're the oldest. If you talk about lahalos ner tamid, then you're a perfect example of that consistency. And I'm sure, as I feel sometimes with the daf, it can't be easy to continue to do day in and day out what you're doing. I know that for a fact, that just any type of consistency, especially when we're dealing with an organization like yours that carries the burden and the responsibility that you carry, I definitely feel that all has to be mishtatos, and do what we can to help and to carry that with you.
It's kol yom yu beinachal kechadashim, or chadashim mamash. You have to come up with innovative ways to make it fun. That's 100% the teva b'nei adam, nature. And also, but there's special times of the year that those times of the year give us chayas and give us strength, give us life. What better thing for a person to do during the 3 weeks than learning about the Klei HaMikdash and the Mais HaMikdash, and how we could do Avodas Hashem in our generation today by serving HaKadosh Baruch Hu in the ways that He gave us today to do. And like we have in the Haftarah of the 9 days of Tziyam B'Mishpat Ipada, Yeshavah B'Tzedakah, that we should be to be zeichet to see the Beis HaMikdash and to see Aaron Nakayan, light the Menorah, Ya'iru Mukdei HaMenorah, Ya'iru Shivas HaNeiros, all the Neiros will light with Aaron Nakayan, and we'll see the Menorah, even though that to light the Menorah is Ksher Bizarre. You don't have to be a Kohen to light the Menorah.
Right. Yes. with Seder, that's true. Wow. Also a big thing. Seder,
You don't have to be a kohen to light a kohen gadol to light the menorah.
Wow,
I think
that's incredible.
the first time around, we'll find out who will do it.
Okay.
But that's again consistent with the message. You don't have to be a gadol or to light a menorah. Light a menorah is ksher b'zar. Anyone, I don't think if anyone did it or anyone was able to do it, but the message that anyone could do it.
And I think that message will be reinforced. When you watch the film, you will see, I don't want to give it away, there's so much there, but you will see, like you're saying, Yidden, Pashto Yidden, who have been in Rome, yes, since the time of the Churban. They're the oldest uninterrupted Jewish community in the world outside of Eretz Yisrael. Some of them have been 2,200 years. So there's been interruptions, but this one is uninterrupted for 2,200 years. Some of them are there from the story of Hanukkah, when the Yidden sent ambassadors to Rome to help them against the war against Greeks. They're still there. They stayed there, and we met their descendants, and they're still keeping Torah and mitzvahs, the consistency, dar, and they're holding on until we get where Zoe said to Oiroi Shel Mashiach. If I could just say a plug, hashkifa.com. You can watch that film on hashkifa.com, HASHKISA.com. It's called Hidden Light. Hidden Light. All of us walk around with a tremendous art inside, and sometimes we need help accessing it. So you learn a sitta from the Rebbe, right? You do a mitzvah, you get in touch with that art. And another way I'm offering this Shabbat is to watch the film. That's also a way to get in touch with that hidden light. It'll uplift the spirits of any Jew that watches it and connect them with that light that is so crucial for every yid to shine as we prepare for Mashiach.
Rabbi Gold, what better way to spend the time on Tisha B'Av than learning about the menorah and bringing that Yafet and unifying Klal Yisrael? And if the menorah is there, it's definitely an important conversation, definitely fun and exciting. But the most important thing is that we should come together and finally be zeicha to the Eibush should rebuild the Beis Hamikdash. That we should see Beis Hamikdash, its full glory with all the kelim, wherever it is, and to see I think Shalom Klal Yisrael. And until then, you should have this chus to motivate Yidden, encourage them, bring emunah, betachon in your stories, Sipur Tzadikim, Sipur Vavardes.
Amen.
Thank you very much.
Yoel, for this opportunity. It was worth it for that brasa alone. Thank you.
And Mir Tishan, be zeicha together.